Good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. Welcome to Sentence Correction webinar by e-GMAT. My name is Payal Tandon and I will be your main host today. With me, I have Sandeep as well, who is our sales representative, and he's a GMAT strategy expert as well, and he can help answer any questions that you may have with regards to your study plan, with regards to how is it that you can get to your target score. I also have Shraddha, who's our sentence correction expert, and she will be taking care of any questions that you may have that I may not able to address, because I will be addressing all of you. So any individual questions that you may have with regards to sentence correction, Shraddha would be taking care of those. All right then. So um, let's get going with this session. Now, this is a very application-oriented webinar, and because of its application-oriented nature, what we have done is we have made sure that you have the right kind of foundation to be able to follow along in this session. So let me ask you this question. How many of you have gone through, let me get the poll here. All right. How many of you have gone through these concepts here with regards to modifiers? Okay. So I see about, well, I think it's going to go down to about 50%, less than 50%. Okay. Now, these are concepts related to modifiers. And if you go through these concepts, these 4 files, you will be able to cover at least 50% of all the modifiers that are tested on the GMAT. And you will be able to get that solid understanding of how these modifiers are used, what do they lead to in terms of meaning, implications, and whatnot. So definitely after the session, go through these concept files so that you get that clarity in terms of your understanding of these modifiers. And as we go through this webinar, you're going to understand why is that level of clarity required for you to be able to answer questions on the GMAT. Okay, so again, these are part of your free trial, so so definitely access that after the session if you haven't already done so. All right. Now, we conduct webinars on a routine basis every Saturday, Sunday. Tomorrow, I will be walking you through how is it that you should approach number properties questions. And we will be talking specifically about divisibility and remainders questions. It's going to be a very, very specific webinar, unlike today's webinar, which is a more broad-based webinar in which we are talking about overall strategy towards sentence correction. But tomorrow's webinar is going to go very focused on remainders, and again we are going to go from difficult questions. We're going to break them down into smaller chunks so that you understand what does it take to master a specific topic like remainders, and whatever your learnings would be from there, you would be able to apply to the other sections of quant as well. And then next Saturday, we're going to talk about reading comprehension. What are those strategies that you absolutely need to master in order to do well in reading comprehension? So if you haven't registered for these, definitely do so right now. And I'm going to leave this over here on the side in case you haven't registered for these already. Now, let's come and talk about what are your GMAT plans. Let's get to know you a little better. And I know you have already put in your information here. There's this other fun question, so let's go through that one as well. How many of you are retakers? How many of you will take the test for the first time and are currently taking marks? How many of you are in the middle of your preparation? How many of you have started your preparation? How many of you are yet to begin your preparation? So let's get those responses, and then I'm going to get one more poll to see what is the score that you are targeting. So let's get that one as well. All right, there you go. What's your target GMAT score? So I see that the largest chunk here, 37% of the class, has not as yet taken a date. Okay. And then there are few who are taking the test within the next 15 days. So again, don't think that you will not benefit from this session. In fact, we will be taking difficult questions in this session. So this is a really good way to figure out whether you have the right strategy to apply on sentence correction. So definitely welcome all of you. People who are taking the session, the test anywhere from 16 days to 45 days, again, you will be able to get feedback on the kind of strategies that you're using, and you have enough time to do course correction as well. And people who are taking the test beyond 45 days, you will definitely if you haven't as yet made any mistake in your strategy, you will now learn what is the right strategy to utilize. So yes, you are at the right place here. Now let's look at how many of you are retakers. So let's look at that poll. So I see that so you have there's okay, let's see, 27% of the class has just started their preparation. Okay, 30% are in the middle of the preparation and then will be taking the test the first time. So I would say 50, almost 50% is in the middle of the preparation or are currently taking mock test. Okay, sounds good. Now, let me ask you this as well. Well, let's look at this poll result also. Um, 47, 50, almost 50% of the class is targeting more than 730 to 750, and I would say what 80% of the class is yes, 80. 70% of the class is targeting beyond 730. Okay, good. Now, score beyond 730 is pretty strenuous. It takes an effort to get a score that's beyond a 730. So I'm going to start off with a slide to just tell you why is it that you need to target that score beyond 730. And I'm going to leave you with uh, these 3 points. And why is that? Because again, I know that almost 70% of the class has that target score of 730. So this slide should essentially push the people who are not as yet aiming for a 730 to actually get their target score above 730. And also, this slide should work as a motivating factor for when you come across those days which appear very laborious to you, those days when you feel, no, it's not possible, I can't do it, those are the days that this slide is going to come in very handy. I mean, on those days, this slide is going to come in very handy. So I'm just going to leave you with the 3 reasons that you should definitely target a score beyond 730. Top B schools now require a score of 730. No matter what the B school says, this above 700 is good. No, they now, depending upon based on their intake data, they now almost require a score of 730 plus. Okay. Another thing, MBA is an expensive deal. The more than 50% of all the scholarships go to students who score beyond a 730. So if getting into a top B school, if let's say, I mean, it's, so again, regardless of what school you get into, I mean, you will be able, you stand a much higher chance of getting a scholarship if you have that score of 730 or above. So that itself should be a very big motivator for you on those days when you feel a little bit down, or when you feel that it's really tough. The third part, the difference in the total earnings over a 10-year period is more than $500,000. And again, this is the highest it's ever been. And this difference is going to continue to increase given the period that that we are all in. So again, overall, if you think about it, that 700 to 730, that 30-point difference could lead to, almost $500,000 of money for you. And again, I would urge all of you to take a snip of this, just take a screenshot or take an image of this, and just keep it in front of your in your work area, in your study area, so that it serves as a reminder for you whenever you on those days when you need a push to get to that score beyond 730. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of these slides, so I'm just skipping through those. Again, these are just reference information for you. And again, I will be sharing these slides with you towards the end of the session so that you can go through these uh, at your own pace. All right. So again, all of this shows the amount of scholarships that students have gotten. And again, All right, and again, this one shows about the salary difference. Again, a lot of neat data for you to go through, but right now let's get to sentence correction. Okay, now what we're going to do in this session is we're going to solve four difficult questions, and these questions are mix of e-GMAT questions and official questions. And what we are going to, again, as we solve the question, we are going to see how you approach the question versus how you should have approached the question. Okay, now here is the process that we're going to typically use. Just get the poll here. All right, so I will show you the question. Now, I will not time you. By that, what I mean is that I don't want to put a impose a time restriction right now, because right now we are all in the learning phase. So what I want you to do is whenever I give you a question poll, just click on still solving. And when about 50% of the class is done selecting an answer choice while they're solving the question, I will let you guys know. And then essentially you as a cohort will be timing yourself, right? So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, just some housekeeping tips here. We have Shraddha, we have Stacy. Both of them are our sentence correction experts. They will be addressing your questions that you post in the Q&A pod here. Q&A pod is meant for the questions that originate from you. Okay, so any questions that you may have pertaining to the content that I'm talking about, or maybe certain other content, maybe the question that I've already discussed. If you have certain lagging questions based on that, feel free to post those questions in the Q&A pod, and Stacy and Shraddha would address the sentence correction related questions. Sandeep would address any general GMAT related questions. Okay, now the questions that I ask you as a class, put in the responses of those questions in the polls that are there on the right hand side of your screen. Okay, so if you post any question, any specific question over here which I may not be able to answer because I'm covering other content, and that question is going to go unnoticed, and I don't want that to happen. That's why let's follow these best practices so that all of us get the maximum from this webinar. All right, so before I give you the first question, let me ask you this. What is the problem that you face in sentence correction today? Before we get into question solving mode, let's understand what is the problem that you all face in sentence correction today. All right, I'm going to start reading a few responses here. Modifiers, verb BD versus verb ing. I see quite a few of modifiers issues. Again, if you don't have conceptual clarity in modifiers, those concept files that we have that are part of your free trial would be really, really good. Okay, questions testing idioms. Don't worry about idioms. Identifying errors. All right. Full sentence underlined, very difficult. Okay. Confusion at the last two choices, not fast enough. Confused between couple of answer choices. Okay, so again, two choices. Um, Unable to judge the correction. I'm not fast enough. Comparing options. Okay. All right. So I want you all to just do a mental, take a mental image of these responses here. Okay. Because as we go through the session, I'm going to ask this question again. And I'm going to reframe this question. And the question that I'm going to ask again is that what do you think you need to work on in order to improve in sentence correction? Okay, right now, if I were to translate the responses here to the responses to the question that I will ask you later on, things would be like, I need to understand dangling modifiers. I need to be able to identify verbs in non-regular form. I need to be able to solve questions testing idioms. I need to know how to solve a full sentence that's underlined because those are very difficult for me. I need to be able to not be confused at the last two choices. So again, you guys get the sense of where I'm going. So take a mental picture of this, and then we are going to I'm going to ask this question again towards the end of this session. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Now let's move on to our first question, and I want all of you to click on still solving. I have about 352 people in the session, so let's get this still solving number up to at least 150, if not more. Ideally, I would want each one of you to be actively engaged here. All right, so make your selection. We're almost 85% done. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And here are your responses. 41% of the class has selected choice E. And then I would say choice B and C are almost similarly popular. Choice D is the next one there. All right, so this is an official guide question, OG Advanced. So this is definitely a 700 level question. So let's go through how did you go about solving this question? And I'm going to walk you through one possible thought process, and then I want you to tell me if that is the thought process that you utilized or thought process which is similar to the one that I'm going to just walk you through. Okay. All right. So you read the question or original sentence real quick. The overall slackening of growth in productivity is influenced less by government regulations. There is some influence being talked about, although that is significant for specific industries like mining, than the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity. So you got some sense of the sentence, but not really too much. Then you went through the answer choices, because again, answer choices are fairly short here, so you did a quick scan. What you found over here was that there is by in choices C, D, and E. By the coming to an end of, by ending, by the end of. And then that triggered that thought in your head that, oh, okay, there is by, which means that and again, when I look at the original sentence, there is by over here. So I need to have a by because sentence has less by government regulation. So the by split should be correct. So that way you eliminated choices A and B. Okay, now your job was to decide which one of C, D, and E would be correct. Now you looked at choice C and you found by the coming to an end of. That looks a little weird. By the coming to an end. I mean that's not a structure construction that you've typically seen. So you rejected choice C. And then if you had to select between D and E, which one would be the correct one? You saw by ending by the end of. By the end of seems a lot more pleasing to the ear and a lot it just seems to be more correct. So you selected choice E. Now, how many of you went through this thought process or a thought process that is similar to the one that you see on the screen? And let's get some more responses here, because again, we are going to have quite a few learnings in this session, and from each question you will get a certain specific learning, and I want you to make a note of those. And these are your responses here. 122 of you selected choice E. Okay, so you definitely and I'm guessing from your responses here, people who are saying yes, you did come to choice E as the correct answer, and this is the thought process that you utilized. Okay, now um, this is not the correct answer. Okay, choice E is not correct. The correct answer is choice C. The choice that you rejected on the account of it being weird, that is the correct answer choice. So the thought process that you utilized is not the correct thought process because it led you to an incorrect answer choice. In this case, it led you to an incorrect answer choice, right? So again, you need to fix that thought process. Now, you may wonder where did I go wrong? Now, this is an official guide question, as I said, official guide advanced question. And this question is characterized as a grammar based question. Okay. And however, even though it's characterized as a grammar based question, when you did apply grammar in this in the thought process that you utilized, you didn't get to the right answer. Okay, so essentially the way you solved this question was you simply went through pattern recognition, and frankly you cannot solve difficult questions by using such pattern recognition methods. Okay, you have to utilize a very logic oriented method in order to solve sentence correction difficult questions. And for you to be able to get to that 90th percentile, that percentile that you absolutely require in order to get to a score beyond 730, you need to be able to answer difficult questions consistent. You need to be able to answer difficult questions correctly in a consistent manner. And for that, You need to have a process that is scalable, and you need to have a process that gives you the right result all the time. Okay, and that's where the e-GMAT's meaning-based method comes into picture. Okay, now let me ask you this: what do you think is important in sentence correction? And let me actually give you a poll in which I want you to put in that. Because before I show you the right method, I want you to um, understand what is actually required. What are your expectations from a sentence correction question, and what does GMAT SC test you on? Okay, this poll small. Wow. Okay, hold on, guys. I need to. This poll really became too big. Give me 1 second. All right, there you go. All right, tell me, what according to you is tested on the GMAT SC? So look at how you are all selecting, majority or almost all of you are selecting communication, meaning, and logic. Okay. But when it came to solving this question, you didn't necessarily utilize logic. Tell me, in this approach, where did you utilize logic? And again, I'm talking about quite more than 50% of the class did not utilize logic here, right? So why the disconnect? Why is it that you feel or that you think that GMAT SC is all about meaning and communication and logic, but then when it comes to actually solving the question, you don't resort to utilizing meaning, you resort to doing pattern recognition. Tell me, why is that happening? And again, that introspection is very is required. Okay, so let's look at that. It takes more time. It's a time pressure. You are unable to judge the language of the sentences. Logic was following the structure. Now if you think that logic was pattern recognition, then you're really wrong there. Humans will never be good at pattern recognition, will never be better at pattern recognition than computers. And again, here we are not competing against computers, we are competing against humans, right? We have to understand what is it that we absolutely need to be able to do well in our during our MBA and post our MBA career. And it's not pattern recognition. We are not there to beat the computers. We are there to understand, to be able to show our prowess in what the humans are good at, which is doing communication, which is really communication and making sure that we are able to understand what the author intends to communicate, and we are able to communicate that back to our audience, right? So the key thing over here is you guys intuitively know that meaning is important, but you don't right now have a way to translate that into a process that you can consistently utilize to solve questions. And that is what we're going to learn in this session. Okay, and again, it's not that as soon as I tell you this is the process that you need to use, you will be able to apply that process right away. No, that's not going to happen, but we're going to give you the right kind of methods to be able to learn the process that you absolutely need to utilize to solve such questions. Okay, so let's now go through the way we want you to go through, the way you should be going through the solution of this question if you were to answer the question correctly. Okay, so let's do that. All right. The overall slackening of growth in productivity is influenced less by government regulation. So essentially, whenever I'm reading a sentence, what I'm doing is I'm splitting this into smaller parts, right? So I read this part: the overall slackening of growth in productivity is influenced. So I'm trying to understand this. What is the author talking about over here? The author is saying that the overall um, reduction in growth in productivity is influenced by certain stuff. And then when I see the word less, what should get triggered in my head? If the author has used the word less over here, what do I expect to see in the sentence? There is a comparison. Absolutely, there is a comparison that the author is presenting, which means that there are going to be two things that the author should bring about. Now you have read the sentence only till this point, but you already know that there are two factors that the author will be talking about. So let's read them further. Now, why am I predicting what the author could be saying next? Because because what happens then is that I'm pausing and I'm assimilating the meaning, and I'm also thinking, okay, what could the author say next? And when the author definitely says that part, it gives me the confidence that I'm learning, that I'm able to understand the author's point really very well. Okay, and that's the power of reading the sentence slowly in order to understand the meaning that it communicates. Okay, so is influenced less by government regulation. Okay, so it's influenced. So the first factor over here is government regulation, although that is significant for specific industries like mining. Now, why do you think the author has used the word although? What is the purpose of the word although over here? It's a contrast. Why? Yes. And what contrast is he presenting? He's actually saying that yes, it is in, he's already said that this overall reduction in the growth and productivity is influenced less by government regulation. So he's saying that okay, government regulation influences this to a lesser degree, to a smaller degree. So again, he said that government regulation doesn't influence it as much, but then he says although that is significant for specific industries, but he's saying that government regulation is indeed more is indeed significant in certain industries. So he's just describing the government regulations impact a little bit more. Okay, now again, in this sentence it doesn't matter what this part is saying, because again it's not in the underlined portion, but you never know, this part may have an impact in the underlined portion as well. So you really need to understand the sentence in its entirety, and don't just ignore any part just because it falls in the non-underlined portion. Okay, then so let's come back to the comparison over here. Then, and let's also do this, than the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity. So over here, what the author is saying is he's presenting the second factor here. The second factor is coming to an end of a certain period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity, right? So over here, so you have two factors. So essentially, when you read the sentence, there are three aspects that you should have gotten from the sentence. The first aspect is that the sentence is explaining these factors that are responsible for the reduction in growth and productivity. That's what you got from the first part of the sentence itself. Then the second one is the aspect two is that there are two factors. The first factor is government regulation. The second factor is the fact that a period of rapid growth in certain thing comes to an end. Those are the two factors. And by the way, the first factor has less of an impact than the second factor. That's what the author is saying. Now, these are the three aspects that you should have gotten to. Now tell me, how many of you took these three aspects into consideration when you evaluated the answer choices when you solved the question? So, less than 35, less than 35% of the class. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how taking these aspects was absolutely critical for you to be able to solve the question. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want you to make a note of these aspects here, and I also want you to tell me which aspects did you not understand when you solved the question on your own, or which aspects were you not able to were you which aspects did you not even take into consideration, or you weren't even able to arrive at those aspects? And if you arrived at all the aspects, then select none. So aspect 2, which is the second factor, that's something which quite a few of you were not able to understand. So think about this, think about the implication of this. The second factor, the fact that a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity comes to an end, this was the aspect which was truly which is actually in the underlined portion of the sentence. And that is the aspect which majority of you were not even able to understand. Okay. Now, do you see a disparity here? You all intuitively know that sentence correction tests you on the meaning, but when it comes to understanding the aspects of the sentence, you're not focusing on it and you're not able to understand the aspects of the sentence, right? And remember, when I asked you earlier, what are the key issues that you face with sentence correction? Only very few people said that you're not able to understand the meaning. Almost all the other people said, or majority of the other people said that we don't know idioms, we don't know tenses, we don't know modifiers. Now, in this sentence, you weren't able to get aspect 2 too. Is there any grammatical reason why you were not able to get this aspect? Tell me. And again, I am going to ask you such questions because which may seem to be okay, how does that impact my sentence correction accuracy ability? But you will see how all of this leads to the problems that you have been facing in sentence correction. Again, and you need to do this introspection. It's not about solving questions, it's about understanding what do I need to focus when I'm solving questions. Okay, and again, identifying the problem is winning half the battle if you identify the problem the right way. And that's what my goal is over here, to make you understand the problem that you are facing in sentence correction today, so that you have the right kind of tool set to be able to, so that you then embrace the tool set that I provide you with. Okay. All right. So let's now go further and understand where is this creating issues. Why not understanding these aspects led you to select the incorrect answer choice. Okay, now if you look at the grammar part of this sentence, really the grammatical reason for why this choice is wrong is absolutely correct, that the by is missing in the second comparison, in the second entity over here, that is being compared. So that is the issue. By is missing, so it's a parallelism error. Okay. Now let's take a look at the answer choices. Okay. Now choices A and D, A and B will be eliminated because by is missing. So that part is correct. Now let's come to choice C. By the coming to an end of. Now, if you look at what the original sentence is saying is that the fact that this period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity comes to an end, and that is expressed absolutely correctly by saying by the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth. Okay. Now take a look at choice D. What is choice D saying? Choice D is saying that this is the factor is by ending a period of rapid growth. So essentially, it's saying that the reduction happens by the action of ending this set period, not by the fact that this set period comes to an end. Okay, but by the action of ending that period. That's what choice D is communicating. What is choice E communicating, which was the most popular answer choice? 41% of the class selected it. By the end of, it's basically saying that the reduction happens because of the final part of that set period. It happens by the end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity, and that's absolutely incorrect meaning. And again, I want you to understand that what is the difference between coming to an end and end. Okay, and take a look at this curve and read the sentence. Tech stocks become affordable when the respective company's ability to innovate comes to an end. And look at how we are figuring out the innovation, that the innovation is coming to an end by the number of patents really going down beyond a certain point, right? So at this point over here, so okay, so the first sentence is tech stocks become affordable when the respective company's ability to innovate comes to an end. Now, if you are a trader, or if you are a financial analyst, what would you recommend? At which point would you recommend your client to purchase the stock for that particular company? Will it be points 1 or point 2? If you're going by the first one, that the tech stocks become affordable when the respective company's ability to innovate comes to an end, then again, this is the point where you would want, I mean, this is the start of that period, right? You would want the person to basically buy the stocks at this particular point, right? However, if you say the tech stocks become affordable when the respective company's ability to innovate ends, you would then basically say if sentence 2 were correct, then this would be the point over here. Okay, and again, look at the huge difference between the 2 points. That is the difference in the meaning that you are communicating from these 2 sentences. Comes to an end versus ends. Okay, that is the difference which is communicated over here. By the coming to an end, this is the start of a period, okay, versus by the end, this is actually the end part. And again, if you think about it, had you focused on understanding the meaning, you would not have made this error. But in this question, because you are able to, because you are not focusing on the logic part of it, because you are rushing through the grammar, that's the reason why you are such differences, although are very logical to you, but you're not focusing on those differences. And that's the reason why you're not able to answer such questions correctly. Okay. Now, I have a very big response over here in caps. Quick response is required, so not able to assimilate. No, quick response is not required. Your goal over here is that you should be able to answer questions correctly. Okay, timing is something that comes later on. Okay, and that's the mistake. That's the number one mistake that students do. They think that they are racing. No, you're not racing. You're building your ability. You're not in a race without building your ability. You have to, oh, okay, think about this. When you participate in a sprint or even in a marathon, do you start to time yourself right away for the last for the end for the final D-Day? No, you build your ability slowly, right? And this is what you need to do. You need to build your ability first before you start to time yourself for the test taking in order to simulate the test taking environment, right? Right now you have to build your ability and you have to understand what is important. Okay, that's the first and the foremost thing for you to do. Okay, now I have a question. How are we to know if this is asking the end or coming to an end? From the original choice, look at what choice A is saying. Choice A says the coming to an end of. Choice A is not saying that it's by the end of. Choice A did not say than the end of. If choice A said than the end of, then definitely choice E would have been the correct answer. But choice A is explicitly stating that it's coming to an end of a particular period and not the end specifically. Okay, so choice A has to be that guiding light that tells you what is it that the author intends to communicate. And that's the whole goal of GMAT sentence correction. Given a sentence, this is what the original sentence is. This is what the author wants to communicate that meaning. You have to help the author communicate that meaning in the right manner. That's what your job is. Author is your friend and you have to help your friend so that he can communicate properly. So we should also pay attention to the language of the underlined sentence. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because the underlined part is, okay, that's a very good question. Just because a part of the sentence is underlined, yes, that is the part you need to correct. But it doesn't mean that you should not focus your attention there. You need to focus your attention there because that is part of the entire sentence. You have to, when you're reading the original sentence, you should not worry about what part is underlined and what part is not underlined. You should read that entire sentence as if it's with the goal to understand overall what is the author trying to communicate. Okay, regardless of where the sentence is underlined or where the sentence is not underlined. Now, yes, where the sentence is underlined, you know there may be a certain error there. So when you're focusing on identifying errors, then definitely there will be error only in this particular part, but that error is a result of the entire sentence and not just that part of the sentence. Okay. Is there any rule of breaking the sentence? Absolutely, there is. We have this course called as Master Comprehension, and in that course, we teach you how is it that you should read the sentence and break it down into smaller chunks. We know that this is a skill that you have to build, and that's the reason why we have a special course dedicated just to do that. Now, once you learn those skills from Master Comprehension course, you go through the entire sentence correction course, and each and every sentence in the sentence correction course is actually broken according to the strategies that are taught in the Master Comprehension course. Okay, so you learn the art of breaking a sentence through strategic pausing in master comprehension course, and then you apply that in each and every sentence that you see on the e-GMAT platform utilizing that particular strategy. Where can we get that course? That's part of your GMAT online course. Okay, so that's part of the entire course offering. All right, so GMAT SC is a test of meaning and logic. That's something that I want all of you to understand. Okay, what you have to break it down into two parts. First of all, can you understand the intent that is to be presented, which means can you understand the intended meaning of the sentence? Okay, that's the first job, because till the time you don't understand what is it that the author wants to communicate, you won't be able to fix that sentence, right? You need to know what is it that the author wants to communicate. The second thing is, can you present it in the correct form? Okay, now, so the first part is always understand the meaning of the sentence, and then you need to have complete understanding of the meaning of the sentence, right? Now, if you notice in this question, utilizing grammar, the by error, we were able to reject only two choices. The two incorrect choices, choices D and E, were both grammatically correct, but there was a meaning change. Okay, so this again shows that you need to have that 100% understanding of the meaning. Now, again, I will say this, for easier questions, 500 level questions, 550 level questions, you will be able to get by just doing pattern recognition. But remember what your goal is, and that's why I started off with that slide of that 730 score. To get that 730 score, you need to be at that 90th percentile ability in sentence correction. And to be at that level, you need to have a consistent process. You need to be able to answer difficult questions consistently. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solve this SC question, question number 2, using the meaning-based process. Now that you know what the meaning-based process is, I want you to apply that process on this question, which means you are going to take longer. And one thing that I do want to tell all of you is, before this nagging thought of, but how am I going to solve this question in such a detailed manner in the exam environment? I don't want that nagging thought impacting your ability to start to apply the meaning-based process. So let me tell you this. When you learn a new process, a new skill, you take time. And let me ask you this question. Tell me about a skill that you recently built, recently or maybe in the recent past, or in your childhood days. Tell me about a skill that you built. And you should and you should have built that skill, so which means that you are skilled in it right now. So running, cooking, riding a bike. How many of you have started to cook in this COVID period? Let's take just one example from here. How many of you have recently started to cook in this COVID period? Yeah, quite a few of us, right? I mean, we have been forced to cook. Some of us were cooking before, but yeah, some of us have been forced to cook. Now tell me, when this entire thing started back in February, March, did you take longer to cook? I mean, did you have to think through, okay, I need to, how much of salt should I add? How much of this ingredient should I add? Did you have to do that explicit thinking? Yes or no? Compare your skill level in cooking back in February March period versus now, and tell me how have you evolved? Are you a lot I bet you all are a lot more skilled in cooking today than you were back in February March period. Why did that happen? Why did you not force yourself at that point in time in February March that no, I have to cook. I need to be able to cook like a perfect I need to be able to prepare a meal within a certain time frame. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a timer right there and then. You didn't do that, right? You didn't put that unreal pressure of time on yourself because you knew that's not logical. You're just starting to learn to cook. That means you have to give yourself time to learn that process. So it's going to be a disaster if you put a timer that no, you have to make that perfect meal within 15 minutes. That's not realistic. But now you can actually put together a decent meal within a certain time frame. Why is that possible now? Because you have built that skill. Now that skill is a second nature to you. You have practiced using the right process, using the right kind of meals. You practiced from making easier meals to more complicated meals, right? You didn't start off solving difficult questions. You didn't start off creating the most difficult meal to cook, right? That is the same level of process. That's the same approach that I want you to apply to sentence correction. Does that make sense? The minute we start thinking about solving these specific questions from the point of view of building skill set to solve these questions, our whole approach towards how is it that we need to build our skills would basically change. Now you're not going to think about, okay, I have to do this within the 1.5 minute or within a minute. You will not put that unreal time expectation. Okay, it's all about setting the expectations right. Okay, at this stage, timing doesn't matter. But you need to have the confidence in the process that you're using, in the method that you're using to learn this process. So you know, okay, I am going to get to that point. Ultimately, you have to get to that point wherein you can solve the question within 90 seconds or 60 seconds. And you will get to that point. I have the experience of thousands and thousands of students who have been able to start from where you are at to that 90th percentile in SC. If I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you telling you to utilize this process. Will meaning-based process help us solving all problems? Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, don't get me wrong, you need grammar, but grammar is a tool to communicate meaning. You need to use it to communicate meaning. Okay, don't think that grammar is the end goal. That's the mistake that all of you, that the students who falter do. Okay, you have to be, grammar is required. What is grammar? Tell me that. What is grammar? Grammar is the syntax, absolutely. Rules of English, rules to put words together to communicate, way to communicate, absolutely. If you didn't know grammar, then you wouldn't know when I am using a construction, what do I intend to communicate? It's a framework, absolutely. Right? You need it's a coding language, if you will, right? So that's what it is. So you need to know the syntax to understand that okay, if I'm using verb ing modifier, then it would mean either 1, 2, or 3. You need to have that understanding. Or if I'm using noun plus noun modifier, then it could mean 1, 2, or 3. Right? So you need to have that set of rules that all of us follow regardless of where we come from. You need to learn that set of rules, right? That's the goal of grammar. But that set of rules is towards an intended purpose, which is to communicate the meaning. So if you use grammar from that perspective, then essentially grammar is no different than meaning. Grammar is the way to get to meaning, right? But meaning is the most important thing, and that's what you have to understand as the end goal. Now, let's solve this question, and let me bring back the poll here. Question number 2. Let's get that. I know I did a segue there, but that's very important because I don't want that meaning part or timing part to be that nagging thing in your head. Now I'm hoping that all of you will solve this question using the meaning-based process without worrying about the time. All right, let's get this number to 150. Yeah, we're getting there slowly. 124, 27, 22 more. Okay, 20 more. Good, almost there. All right, 10 more. Let's get to 150. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, good. We are at 150. There you go. Solve this question. Read the sentence slowly. All right, last 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, I'm going to reopen it once more. There's 19 people who are still left to make a selection, so let's do that. All right. Okay, so here are the responses. About 50% of the class selected choice B as the correct answer. Then choice C is pretty popular, and trailing right behind it is choice E. About 34 of you selected choice E. And then D. There isn't as much love for choice A for the right reasons. And I think 13 of you, not I think, 13 of you were still did not make any selection. All right. Now, how many of you were, so let me put this away here. How many of you were able to understand something in this sentence? Yeah. Let me get my poll here. Where is my yes no poll? Just 1 second. Okay. Yeah, there you go. So, how many of you were able to understand some part of meaning of this sentence? I know that's a pretty broad question. Okay, good. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the sentence again, and we're going to use it step by step. We're going to break the sentence down into its sentence structure, and then we're going to understand each of the aspects. But one thing that I will tell you is that when you went through this sentence, because it was completely underlined, it was difficult for you to identify any similarities and dissimilarities amongst the answer choices. It was complete, and that's the nature of completely underlined sentences. For you to, because so many things can be changed in the sentence, for you to do that pattern recognition is really difficult, which is actually good, so that you don't rely on the pattern recognition, which you shouldn't rely on for any kind of question. Okay, so again, it's difficult to rely on the answer choices to give you a framework to answer the questions, which again tells you that meaning-based method is a sure short way to solve those kinds of questions as well. Okay, which are completely underlined. So let's look at this. Because diegetic music uh, actively referenced in the film. Now, when you see the word because, what does that tell you? What that tells you is that there is a cause and effect in this particular sentence. So there will be a cause, there will be an effect. Okay. So that's what I know. Because diegetic music. Now, diegetic music, I may just use a short form of it, calling it DM. Okay. Actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. Now, what is this? Actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. What is the role of this part of the sentence? It's a modifier, but what is it doing? From meaning standpoint, what is it doing? It's describing DM. Absolutely, it's describing DM. All right. Then let's read further. Invoking a sense of verisimilitude. Now, what invokes the sense of verisimilitude? Invoking a sense of verisimilitude. Tell me what invokes the sense of verisimilitude. DM, absolutely. Now, do we know the meaning of verisimilitude? Yes or no? Till this point, do we know the meaning of verisimilitude? Or were you familiar with this word? No. Did that create a sense of uneasiness when you came across this word? For some, it did, but then it shouldn't create that uneasiness. Now, in this case, it shouldn't, because this sentence has actually, the meaning has actually been explained over here, right? In this sentence, the meaning has been explained, but even if the meaning was not explained, whenever you come across, different looking or different words which you're not familiar with, don't get scared. Don't think that, oh my God, how will I solve this question? Don't let that nagging thought impact your ability to understand the meaning of the sentence. Just think about it. Okay, it's a new word. That's okay. The author will give me something in this sentence so that I understand the meaning of that word. And this thing helps a lot in reading comprehension as well as in critical reasoning. Okay, so just don't be scared of unfamiliar words. Okay, so invoking a sense of verisimilitude, let's read further. The idea the idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. So verisimilitude is this idea that art can be used to communicate a truthful sense of reality. Now, when would you need to communicate truthful sense of reality? When the thing that you're talking about is something that is not um, that is not happening in the current time frame. And actually, you don't need to know that, but let's just read this. Filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. Now, when you come to this point over here, filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. How many of you felt that there was this jump in the sentence? All along, till this point, we were talking about this diegetic music, how it is used, what does it do, and then now all of a sudden, we have jumped over to filmmakers, right? And this does seem like a jump in the sentence, and it's good that you identified that jump. Okay, only when you're reading something slowly can you identify such jumps. Okay, that's what he has been that's what happened in this sentence. In fact, this is where there is an error in the sentence, and you were able to identify there was a jump, which means that there's something not quite right in this sentence. And again, why am I telling you this? Because as you recognize these jumps, you identify the errors, which again goes to say that when you read the sentence from its meaning standpoint, when you're spending that effort in just understanding the meaning, you're not just understanding the sentence structure, you're also identifying where the potential issues are. Okay, so the issues in this step itself, a lot of issues in the sentence come to the surface, and that's the beauty of the meaning based process. Okay. Okay, filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. Okay, now this is fairly easy to understand. Filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. Now think about it this way. We started off the sentence saying that there is a cause and effect. Now, you've read the entire sentence. Can you tell what the cause and effect is? Has the author done a good job in communicating that cause and effect? Yes or no? Is that cause and effect causality jumping at you? No, it's not. Which means that the author has not been successful in communicating that, which means that's an issue in this sentence, which means that's something that you have to correct. Now, how will you correct that? What's the first step that you need to do in order to correct this issue that the author is facing? Remember, author is your friend. You understand what the author is trying to communicate, and then you help him communicate that point correctly. So tell me, what is the first thing that you need to know, that you need to do in order to fix author's mistake? You need to arrange the cause and effect structure. Absolutely. You need to identify what is the cause and what is the effect, which means you need to infer that from what the author has given you, from the information that the author has given you. Now, do you see are you able to appreciate the beauty of sentence correction questions here? I mean, you read something that it's almost like a piece of a puzzle that you're trying to solve, right? Slowly, you're basically peeling those layers of complexity. Now, essentially over here, let's understand the aspects here. Aspect number one, there's a feature of diegetic music presented, that it's actively referenced instead of being stuck in the background. Aspect number two, that DM invokes a sense of verisimilitude. Aspect number three, filmmakers who create historical dramas use DM often. Now, the issue over here is there is no causality, right? That's the issue. Okay, we don't have the clear understanding of what the cause is, what the effect is, and that's where we need to infer the causal relationship. Now, what could be the cause and what could be the effect? Okay, the logical causality will be over here. See, the filmmakers who create period dramas use DM often. Now, filmmakers who create period dramas, what is their need? who create historical dramas, their need is to be able to invoke a sense of verisimilitude. That's the reason why they will utilize diegetic music. So that's the logical causality. Because DM invokes a sense of verisimilitude, filmmakers who create period dramas use it often. That's the logical causality. Okay, so this is something that I want you to make a note of. When you do not get 100% clarity in meaning, don't doubt yourself. Okay. If you have done a good job in splitting the sentence into its chunks, understanding the meaning of each chunk, and despite that, if there is no clarity in meaning, if you still don't get that 100% clarity in meaning, this implies that the author has made a mistake. Author is author has written incorrectly. Okay, that's what it implies, has made a mistake. Okay, don't doubt yourself. Again, I'm saying don't doubt yourself. It's not you who has made a mistake. Why? Because I'm saying if you followed all the process, all the steps, if you broke the sentence down into its chunks, if you understood it, all the aspects, and you put that together and you still feel that there's something missing, this means that the author has made a mistake, which means you now need to spend the effort in inferring the information, in helping out the author to solve the sentence, to write the sentence correctly. Okay, and that's what we did. Okay, now let's take a look at the, now again, if you think about it, the error, identifying the errors, which is step number 2 in our process, is actually something that you've already done. If you think about it, the reason why the sentence is not correct is because diegetic music does not have a verb, right? And that's the reason why you were not able to find the entire cause. You have the effect here with filmmakers creating period dramas use it often, but you don't know what does diegetic music do that leads to the filmmakers create using it often, and that's what the mistake is. The verb is missing. Now let's take a look at choice B. Actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background diegetic music. Now look what's happening here. And this is the beauty of you understanding these aspects. This is the beauty of splitting the sentence into a structure, understanding the aspects. So now even if the sentence structure is changed, you still know the role that each of those individual entities played in order to communicate the meaning, and you can still, you won't get nervous that, oh, now actively referenced in the film is placed somewhere else. That's not going to cause any anxiety because you know what the intended role of that particular entity is, and as long as the new sentence communicates that role, you're good, right? So that's why identifying these aspects is very, very important, because essentially when you take your sentence from the sentence as a whole into sentence structure and then into the aspects, what you're doing is you are identifying roles played by each and every entity in the sentence, and the entity is not words. Okay, I'm talking about entities as group of words. Okay, so actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background, this is a group of words that was describing diegetic music. And again, in this sentence, that's absolutely correct. Diegetic music is often used by filmmakers creating period dramas. Now look at this. Filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. This has been changed into diegetic music is often used by filmmakers creating period dramas, right? Meaning communicated is exactly the same, but now it's a different sentence structure. And I bet you quite a few of you rejected choice B. Why? Because it utilized is often used by, and this is passive voice. How many of you rejected choice B because you saw this passive voice? And let me ask you this over here. How many of you rejected choice B because you saw there is passive voice over here? See, 14 of you, 15 of you rejected choice B because you thought there's passive voice used here, and that's not correct. Again, these are all misconceptions. These are all misconceptions that lead you to incorrect answer choices, because you're not focusing, those misconceptions exist, plus you're not focusing on the meaning, on the right strategies to solve sentence correction questions, and that's the reason why you end up marking and a correct choice as incorrect choice. Okay, and again, these are just imagine if you don't use the meaning based approach, if you don't focus on the intended meaning, right? If you don't do that consciously, And if you have these misconceptions, just imagine how many, I mean, the test maker really has a field day with all these things, because the test maker has all these different combinations that he can use, capitalizing on the fact that you will not use meaning, capitalizing on the fact that you have these misconceptions, right? And again, there goes your ability in sentence correction. So again, if you focus on the meaning, then such irrelevant things, such misconceptions won't even play a part. Okay. Now, let's come back. Diegetic music is often used by filmmakers creating period dramas because it invokes a sense of verisimilitude. What invokes? Diegetic music invokes a sense of verisimilitude, and this is perfect. We have our cause and effect. The idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. Again, this communicates that meaning. Um, it's absolutely correct. Okay. Now, for those of you who rejected, and again, 50% of you rejected choice B, tell me, why did you reject choice B? Tell me, why did you reject choice B? Passive sentence. Can we go through choice C once? We will definitely go through choice C. Total change in sentence structure. Now, do you see, even if there is a total change in sentence structure, it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong in that. As long as each of the entities, as long as all the aspects of the meaning are intact. E looked better. We'll come to E. Okay, E seemed more close to author's intended meaning. We'll come to choice E. Okay, now that we have gone through the analysis of the correct choice, choice B, and the various reasons that you may have rejected choice B for, is this, are you guys more clear about how your approach to SC really has an impact on your ability to solve questions? Good. That is what I want you to be able to do. How do we break the sentence neatly without being able to mark on screen? Any tips on handling that? Do it on your computer. Do it in a scratch pad right now. Again, right now I am doing this on the screen, right? But when you get in the exam environment, you won't really need to do any of this explicitly, because all of this will happen intuitively in your mind whenever you read. When I read the sentences, okay, I don't have to break it down into the structure, not at all. Okay, I don't have to create this. I don't have to do it on paper or on screen. What I do is when I'm reading it, I'm intuitively breaking it in my head, and I'm able to keep all that meaning intact in my head. Now, what I will write down in my scratch pad are these aspects. I can write them in shorthand, I can write them in full sentences depending upon the amount of time that I have. But I don't really need to create this on my in my scratch pad when by when I am completely skilled. By the time you get completely skilled in it, you won't need to do this. Now, in the process of building that skill set, I would say if you are a computer person, then definitely, copy the sentence in a Word doc and just start bulletizing it and indenting it. If you are a person who takes down notes, right, who believes in writing, then write down the entire sentence. Again, time is not an issue, right? That's what we've been talking about. Timing is not an issue right now. Okay, let me get rid of all these scribbles here. Okay. All right, let's do choice C now. Filmmakers creating period dramas often use, okay, let me get a different pen. Okay. Filmmakers creating period dramas often use diegetic music. Okay, this part is correct. Okay, which invokes a sense of verisimilitude. This part is also correct, that verisimilitude, DM invokes a sense of verisimilitude. The idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. This part is also correct about verisimilitude, right? Because it is actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. That's where the issue is. Filmmakers creating period dramas often use diegetic music because it is actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. Now, here the causality is not what we had inferred. We inferred the causality that filmmakers who create historical dramas use DM often. Why? Because DM invokes a sense of verisimilitude. What choice C is saying is that they use diegetic music because of the way it is utilized in the film, and that causality is absolutely wrong. Okay, no grammatical error here. Okay, no grammatical error. Why this is wrong is because the logical causality, this was the logical causality that we inferred. We didn't infer causality with regards to how DM is used, right? That's not what we logically inferred because that didn't make logical sense. But this choice is presenting an illogical meaning. That is why this sentence is wrong. Okay. Now, about 21% of the class selected this choice. This is definitely a 700 level question, absolutely. Now again, if you did not infer, if you didn't do this step of inferring the causality, then definitely you would have selected choice C as the correct answer because guess what? It looks nice. It looks nicer. It looks a lot more pleasing than choice B. Okay, goes without saying. Then choice B has that nagging passive voice as well, which a lot of us, a number of us think that passive voice is wrong. No, passive voice is not wrong. Passive voice has a certain intent. Okay, it's a grammatical construct. It exists. So if it exists, how can it be wrong? Yes, it is wrong to use it in certain cases, right? But again, you have to understand the utility of that. Okay. Let's look at choice D. Choice D was selected by 19 of you. Now, filmmakers who create period dramas often use diegetic music since it is music actively referenced in the film. Now, again, here also the causality is wrong. Okay, so that's why this choice is wrong. And yeah, let's now look at choice E, which was selected by 34 of you. So after choice C, choice E was the more popular choice. Now, tell me, in choice E, what is the causality? Remember, we started off with causality. This sentence starts with because, right? Now, what is the causality in choice E? There is no causality. So for those of you who selected choice E, thinking that it communicates the meaning of the author intended to communicate a causality, and there is no causality at all, right? So now tell me, if you utilize this approach of understanding the meaning of the sentence by strategically pausing, of identifying all the aspects that the author intends to communicate, of inferring wherever the author wasn't able to do a good job, then do you think you will end up selecting a wrong answer choice if you utilize this approach? You will not end up selecting the wrong answer choice. Absolutely, you will not. This is a foolproof way of making sure that you answer difficult questions correctly on the test. There's no other method that works. Okay? Now let's look at question number two in context with question number one as well. Question two was the e-GMAT question. Okay, it was 100% underlined. Over here, what this signifies is the extent of underlining. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter whether the sentence is partially underlined, whether the sentence is completely underlined. The whole point is that you need to understand the meaning of the sentence. Okay, in this case, in the previous case, there were two incorrect choices which were grammatically correct but meaning changed. This was an official question. Okay. In e-GMAT question again, two incorrect choices. Both are grammatically correct, but there is a meaning change. So, and in this question, we added that additional thing that you need to infer the meaning if the because you were able to tell that the meaning communicated by the original choice was not complete, so you need to do that extra step of inferring the meaning. And if you fail to do this, you will fall in the trap of selecting these incorrect answer choices, because remember, there is a reason why the test maker puts in those choices. The test maker capitalizes on the fact that you will skip this step. Okay, and again, I'm saying this based on our thorough review of each and every official question that is created by the test maker. We've solved that question not once, not twice, but at least 5 to 10 times, so that we can extract all that information to understand what is the psyche of the test maker when he or she is creating a question. This is what it is. It capitalizes on you making not following the process, and that's the reason why 90th percentile is 90th percentile, right? That's the whole reason, because people don't typically do that. They don't follow the process to the letter T. Okay. All right, now let's come to question number 3. This is also an official question, and again we'll see something else happening in this question as well. But before I give you question number 3, okay, let me give you the poll for question 3. Here it goes. Click on still solving. Tell me, how are you enjoying the session? We are almost half done with the session. There are a total of 5 questions. I typically solve 4 questions in this one. But what have you learned so far? What has been... Okay, good. That's nice. Meaning good. It's okay. Good. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. And again, frankly, if you look at these questions from the lens of the test maker and what the intent behind such questions is, you will realize that preparing for such questions, preparing your skill set, building your skill set to solve such questions it should be an enjoyable experience. It should not be laborious. Okay, it should not be laborious. It is an enjoyable experience. It's all about building your skill set. And believe me, if you put your mind on it, and if you have the right way to build your skill set, there is no reason why you wouldn't be able to. Okay, all right. So let's solve question number 3 and apply all the learnings that we've been talking about. All right. Last 10 seconds. All right. End the poll. Interesting. It's a staircase here. So choice A and B, not so much love. Good. Choice C is where people started to think that it's correct, and D, then E. Okay. All right. Let's see. So let's solve this question. What do we have here? Many of them chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. And I'm going to ask you questions as I solve this one. Okay. And let's put this away. Okay. Many of them chiseled from solid rock centuries ago, the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia are dotted with hundreds of monasteries. Now, what do you get out of this sentence? What is chiseled from solid rocks? Absolutely. The monasteries are chiseled, not the mountains. This is what you get from the original sentence is that if you read the original sentence, what you get is that the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia are chiseled from solid rock centuries ago, right? The mountainous regions are chiseled. That's what the original sentence says, and then these regions are marked with hundreds of monasteries. Now, when you read the original sentence, it just seems pretty correct. I mean, you don't see very many issues with the original sentence, but you have to really question whenever you get the aspects. You shouldn't just look at the surface. You shouldn't just look at the sentence from a very high level. You have to question, is it logical? Does it make sense to say that the mountainous regions were chiseled from solid rock? Can mountains be chiseled from a single rock? No, not at all. Right? That's what is wrong, and which is what you have been able to figure out. So essentially, what we are doing over here is we are questioning the logical accuracy of the original sentence, and that's very important. Okay, and this is an official question, again, an advanced from advanced guide, and this is a communication based question. Okay, okay, there are two kinds of questions. One is grammar based questions, the other are communication based questions. But again, the meaning is required for both the kinds of questions. Okay, the first question that we solved was the grammar based question. This one is the communication based question. Again, all this means is that as a sentence, it's not correct, not because there is a grammatical error, but because there is a logical error in the sentence. Okay. Why do I say there is no grammatical error? Because again, if it could make logical sense for the mountains to be chiseled from something that's a solid rock, then yeah, the sentence would have been correct. But it's logically not correct to say that. Okay, so that's what is wrong with this sentence. Now again, from grammar rule standpoint, you have to understand the 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 intent behind that grammar rule. The grammar rule is that this entire thing should logically be able to modify, should make logical sense with the modified entity, and that's what it doesn't, right? It should logically modify the monasteries, right? So the modifier error is actually leading to the because of the incorrect modifier, this sentence is wrong. Now let's take a look at choice B. What does choice B say? And again, I'll bring back the poll over here. Choice B was selected by 9 people only. Chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. Again, exact same issue here, right? Chiseled from solid rock, the mountainous regions. That's incorrect. Okay. Now let's take a look at choice C. Choice C says hundreds of monasteries. Okay. Many of them chiseled from solid rock. Now, this part is absolutely correct. Aspect number, the logical aspect is now has now been communicated, right? Are dotting the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia. Now, from the logical standpoint, this sentence is correct. right, from all the aspect standpoint. But what is the implication of this verb tense are dotting? What does that mean? The tense is wrong because are dotting implies that there is that continuity of action, that it's actually dotting right now. If you see it, it's basically dotting right now. And that's not correct, right? The action has already happened, right? It's a fact that had to be presented, right? And that's the issue in this sentence. Okay? So this choice is wrong. And again, quite a few of you selected this choice. So 21 of you. So again, you have to, when you're evaluating answer choices, you have to look at such changes that could lead to incorrect meaning. In this case, the verb tense are dotting, that present continuous tense, is leading to incorrect meaning, and that's what is wrong. Okay? All right, so let's look at choice D now. Choice D says, mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia are dotted with hundreds of monasteries, many of which are chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. Now, again, from all the aspects standpoint, this sentence is correct. But are chiseled, what does are chiseled do? This means that this is a present action. But as such, this action happened centuries ago. So, are chiseled and centuries ago don't go hand in hand, right? There is that big disconnect here. That's why choice D is wrong. Okay. Now let's take a look at choice E. Choice E, which about only 45% of the class selected, is indeed the correct answer. Now, the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia are dotted with, again, are dotted is different from saying are dotting. Okay, when you say, so in choice C, when we said, let's go back to choice C. In choice C, when we said that these are dotting the mountainous regions, it means that the monasteries are right now doing the action. They are slowly appearing in the mountainous regions. That's not what is happening. It's not like these monasteries are still in the process of slowly appearing. Whereas when you see in choice E, some of you who may not have that level of understanding of these constructions, you may think, oh, are dotted. No, are dotted is simply saying that these exist on the hundreds of monasteries. These mountainous regions are dotted with hundreds of monasteries, which means that these monasteries exist on these mountainous regions. That's what this means. It's in passive voice. Okay, that's what is happening over here. So choice E is absolutely correct. Okay, so you have to understand the if you focus your attention on the meaning, then certain issues which are non-consequential don't even matter. For example, which versus them, I mean, those things won't even come to your head. Okay, so again, those are the things which you have to keep in mind. Now, many of them chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. Some of you may think, okay, many of them chiseled, where is the verb here? Okay, there's no need for the verb here because this is a noun plus noun modifier. So again, for constructions such as this, you need to have the right conceptual understanding, but the conceptual understanding needs to be from the standpoint of making sure that that what is it how does it communicate the meaning. So your conceptual understanding has to be from the meaning standpoint. It cannot be memorize this rule. It cannot be, oh, passive voice is incorrect. It cannot be, oh, this is what it has to be. No, it has to have a logical intent. Each grammatical rule needs to be associated with some or the other kind of logic. That's how you should learn the concepts. That's why learning the concepts from the right source that focuses on the meaning is very, very important. Okay. Now again, you guys didn't follow this possible thought, the faulty thought process, which I'm really happy about. Okay. All right. So here again, the splits were misleading. Again, you guys didn't hear. I mean, look at how far you have come. You didn't rely on the splits in this one. Had you relied on the splits, then you would have followed this thought process and you would have marked choice B as the correct answer. So I want you to pat yourself. because you have actually improved in this session. And this is not an easy question, right? This is not an easy question, official question. So think about it. We solved, so if you, so I want you to give yourself credit for where you have arrived at now. Question number one was an official guide question, advanced question. Question number three is also an advanced question. In question number one, you didn't focus as much on the meaning, but in question number three, you have focused on the meaning. That's the reason why you didn't reject. That's the reason why you rejected choice B. Okay, so you have certainly improved. Okay, now here in question number three, what has happened is there were certain changes that happened in the answer choices by virtue of using incorrect verb tenses. So for those of you who selected choices C and D over here in this question, I want you to take this feedback that you need to build your understanding of verb tenses. Again, if you go through the verb tenses module in our course, you will be able to understand, okay, why was R dot incorrect? Why is R dotted correct? You will be able to build your thought process so that you understand the implications of using these different verb tenses. Okay? So again, as I said, you have to use the right way of teaching the concepts. The concepts have to be taught in the context of the meaning that these grammatical rules communicate. You have to have the solution that points out the right kind of issues, right? If you had a solution that focused on, let's say, splits, or if you had a solution that focused on, many versus them, those are inconsequential. Those don't have any much of relevance in the entire realm of sentence correction. Then you wouldn't be able to learn, right? That's why you need to have solutions that are based on the process that you need to utilize. Okay, so with this, let's now solve question number 4, which most likely is going to be the last question in this session. So here you go. Let me get question number 4. Weird. We can use the same poll. That's okay. Click on still solving. All right, go ahead. Last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. All right. Choices B and D. Almost equal love for these choices. And then C is hanging somewhere in the middle. Okay, let's go through this. The sentence is fairly easy to understand. A star will compress itself into a white dwarf, a neutron star, or a black hole after it passes through a red giant stage, depending on mass. Okay, wow. Now, what is wrong with this? If let's say the sentence were only till this point, a star will compress itself into a white dwarf, a neutron star, or a black hole after it passes through a red giant stage. The sentence would happen perfectly fine, right? If it were only till this point. But right now, when you see depending on mass, mass of what? Mass of the star, mass of the planets that revolve around the star, which is not, I mean, you don't know whose mass, right? And that's the reason why this choice is wrong. So good. You guys were able to identify that as an issue. And again, I see that choice A was selected by very, very few people. Okay. So logically, depending on mass should modify a star. The star will compress itself into these depending on its mass, right? That's what it should modify. Now, let's look at choice B. Okay, what does choice B say? After passing through a red giant stage, depending on its mass, a star will compress itself into a white dwarf, a neutron star, or a black hole. Now here, depending on its mass, so first of all, mass is now its mass, so we know that it's talking about a star's mass, but you don't know whether depending on its mass is modifying the action of passing through the red giant stage, or is it modifying the action of will compress? You don't know which one of these it's modifying. That's the reason why this choice is wrong. Essentially, you don't know whether the passing through a red giant stage depends on the mass or whether the compression into these three things depends on the mass of the star. You don't know that. That's the reason why choice B is wrong. Okay. Now let's take a look at choice C. After passing through a red giant stage, a star's mass. Why is this wrong? Because it says that the star's mass passes through a red giant stage instead of saying that the star passes through the red giant stage. That's why it's wrong. Okay. All right. The other thing is if it compresses here, it will refer to the mass. Okay. Because mass is a noun, stars is not a noun, right? So star's mass will not compress itself. That's wrong here, right? So that's why choice C is wrong. So there's a lots going on in choice C, which makes it incorrect. Okay, let's look at choice D. Mass determines whether a star, after passing through the red giant stage, will compress itself into a white dwarf, neutron star, or a black hole. Choice D is correct. Okay, and choice E over here, again, mass of a star after passing, again, mass did not pass. That's what is wrong over here. So choice E is wrong. Okay. All right. Again, we don't need to go through this. Let's solve. Do you guys want to solve one more question? Yes, no? I had scheduled to solve all the 5 questions. So let's see. Do you guys want to solve one more question or are you guys tired? We've been at it since the last almost 2 hours. Okay, so let's solve it. Good. All right. So this one, let's bring the poll here. Okay, we can just reopen and then, yeah. So click on still solving, please. Again, focus your attention on the meaning. Good. Go ahead. I must say this, don't lose focus on the meaning. I'm going to give you guys a hint. People who have selected choice D, sorry, choice C, think about our discussion about causality. The filmmaker's question. Choice E was wrong because of and because the and did not communicate causality. Think about that and then see if you want to change your answer. People who selected choice C. Good. Now, those of you who are selecting choice D, think about the logic part of choice A. Why did you reject choice A? Not from grammar standpoint, but from meaning standpoint. So again, D, folks for D would be, I need to explain you guys the meaning. Okay, good. So let me end the poll and let me show you. And I'm so thrilled to see your response for this particular question. And this question is one of the most difficult questions. Okay. But the fact that majority of you have been able to get to the correct answer speaks volumes. Okay. What do you guys think? Were you able to, before I go into the details, and I know I nudged a few of you to go from C to B, and even before that, there were about 11 people who had selected choice C, and then they moved to choice B, right? And so tell me, what was how do you see yourself solving this question versus when you started off this session? Meaning, right? Understood the causal relationship, focused completely on the meaning. Good, good. Meaning and detail is clear. Delete choice ending with by. Now, why did you delete choice ending with by? That's the important thing. What was wrong with by? And again, I'm going to walk you through the solution. Let me ask this question. What was wrong with by? Is there a grammatical issue with by or is there a meaning issue with by? It's logic. It's not logical to use by, right? Meaning issue. Absolutely. Okay, good. Let me now solve this. I mean, you guys have made my day, made my weekend, I would say. The water strider, a species of semi-aquatic insects, can not only walk on the surface of water, so essentially this water strider can walk on the surface, can not only, so which means that when you see not only, this means that there should be two items over here. Okay, can not only walk on the surface of water, so this water strider we know can walk on the surface of the water, but also can generate enough upward thrust with its legs to launch itself off the surface. Okay, so it can generate enough upward thrust with its legs to launch itself off the surface. Again, as you read the sentence, you can almost visualize this insect called as water strider, essentially jumping off of the surface of the water by achieving one of the most complex physical maneuvers, jumping on water. This is where the sentence starts to break, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense that the water strider can generate enough upward thrust to launch itself off of the surface. And this he does by achieving one of the most complex physical maneuvers, jumping on water. So this is the logical issue. Grammatically, there is nothing wrong with this sentence, but logically, this doesn't make sense. He cannot be generating enough upward thrust with its legs by jumping on water. Frankly, jumping on water is the effect that it basically does because it's able to generate enough upward thrust. Again, you wouldn't have been able to identify, tell me, would you have been able to identify this illogical meaning had you not read the sentence from its meaning standpoint? Absolutely not. And now rewind yourself 2 hours, or I would say exactly 1 hour, 50 minutes. Rewind yourself to that point and tell me, would you have focused on this aspect had I given you this question early on? Absolutely not. This is the impact that happens because you focus on the meaning. Okay, imagine you've just spent an hour and a half with me here. Imagine if you spend 20 to 30 hours with the SC course, what impact that's going to have on your SC ability. That course is created by us, right? You'll go through this similar exercise. You're going to go through the concepts that are taught from logical manner. You're going to go through application that is done in exactly the same manner. Imagine when you go through all those different sentence structures, all those different errors that are there that lead to meaning errors. Again, you will develop that acumen, you will develop that skill set such that you will be able to solve questions within the timing constraint when you are ready. That's the impact that the meaning based approach is going to have on your SC ability. You will get to that 90th percentile. Do you see that? Can you see the path to your goal? Is the path to your goal clear now? That's what my goal over here was, to give you that path. And I'm really glad that it is clear. All right, so let's now look at this question in detail. So again, over here, there's an issue with the logical meaning. Now let's take a look at these answer choices. And if you notice, what I've done is, so let's look at all the aspects first. Aspect number 11A11 is that water strider can walk on the surface. A12 is that it can generate sufficient force such that it launches itself. And then A12 is this one over here, and this is where the logical issue is, that that aspect A12 leads to this one. Uh, that's what it should be, right? So choice B is the correct answer, which majority of you selected. Choice C. Now remember, what did I say? And this basically does not give you any causality here, right? There's no cause and effect here, which is why this is wrong. Generating enough upward thrust with its leg to launch itself and achieving one of the most complex maneuvers. This was linked, right? Aspect number 2 was linked with aspect number 1, 2, and that is what is wrong in this sentence. That's why as soon as I gave that pointer to folks who had selected choice C, they immediately went to choice B. So again, this was a minor thing. Again, very important, but you didn't focus on that. But as soon as I gave that hint, people who selected choice C went to choice B. Look at choice D. Choice D has the same issue that choice A has. So if you didn't focus on, so folks who selected choice D, the 20 of you, and the 4 folks who selected choice A did not go into you did not question, is this logical? So you skipped on that particular part, which is not right. So I want you to fix that. Okay. Now, if you notice, choice A has that grammatical error over here, right? Can not only walk, and then but also can. So there are 2 cans for but also. One which is common over here outside the parentheses of not only but also, and the other one which is inside the parentheses also. So that's why choice A was wrong from grammatical standpoint. But there was this meaning error here as well, which is what continues on in choice D. So you can notice how choice D is grammatically correct but logically incorrect. Okay. And choice E is wrong because again, it's incorrect. Linkage can not only walk on surface generating a walking on surface has got nothing to do with generating enough upward thrust. When the water strider is walking on the surface, it's not generating enough upward thrust. Those are two different things, which was the issue with choice E as well. Choice C had two issues. Okay, so again, you can see how you have to, when you're reading such a sentence which may seem, I mean, grammatically, it's hard to identify any error in choice E, right? They're all constructions which are correct. Verb ing modifier, thereby, but verb ing modifiers, you have to understand with any modifier, is it logical? Yes, construction wise, this may be correct, but is it communicating logical meaning? And for that, you have to go into the meaning analysis, right? And you see over here that if you read the original sentence with the standpoint of visualizing what's going on in this, right? When you're reading this sentence, you should be able to visualize a water strider or some kind of insect walking on the surface. You should be able to visualize it, doing that enough thrust to launch itself off of the surface. When you visualize, you are able to then make these connections, and the sentence should come alive in front of you. When you read the diegetic music sentence, that sentence should have come alive in front of you, thinking, okay, diegetic music, it's used in this way. It is utilized by actively referencing and not just in the background. You watch TV, right? You know what kind of music is there, right? So again, there should be some visualization into the reality that should happen when you're reading the sentence, and that happens only when you focus on the meaning of the sentence. Okay, it would not happen if you're reading the sentence simply as a group of words that exist on your screen. Okay, and the time till the time you are focused only on the grammar as as the end goal, you will never be able, you will not, it would be difficult for you to be able to visualize or picture the sentence in your mind. Okay, all right, so let's now understand certain stuff. I mean, as I said, meaning is the way you have seen. It's not just as I said, you have seen for yourself how meaning can do wonders. Okay, and that is exactly what has happened with thousands and thousands of students. Here's a student who was stuck at 680. He wasn't able to improve. He was stuck at two choices. His brain would tell him, oh, choice B is also correct, choice D is also correct, right? But he didn't have that solid way of rejecting an answer choice, rejecting all the incorrect answer choices, which was the case because he wasn't focused on meaning. He got to 680, right? He was at V32, but he wasn't able to go past that. And that's why I'm saying that yes, if you follow just grammar, if you don't follow the meaning based approach, you will get stuck. You will hit that plateau, and it would be very difficult for you to cross that plateau. Why? Because you will not have built the right skill set. But as soon as you focus on the meaning, as soon as you focus on that sentence structure, you will start to see things moving along a lot more smoothly, because now you will have the right impression of sentence correction, the intended purpose of sentence correction, which is what happened with Dr. Rohit Singh. He went from V32 to V42. Okay, exact. And again, if you want, you can definitely watch his interview on YouTube. Okay, Jim, similar story. He was stuck at 700. He was able to get, I mean, through his innate capability and through whatever he prepared, he was able to get to that 700. But remember, that's a goal of 730 plus. Jim had a goal of 750 plus, and he overshot that goal. He got to 770. How? Because he focused on meaning. He was somehow able to get to that 700 level through the other two sections as well, in verbal, through grammar itself, and maybe some focus on logic. But beyond that, he had to embrace the meaning based approach, and only then he was able to get it. Now, so many of you are starting your prep, or are or are in middle of their prep. I want you to do that conscious switch from grammar to meaning. And again, grammar, when I say grammar to meaning, I don't mean that, okay, grammar is not important. As I've said, grammar is a way for you to communicate meaning, right? But you have to keep the end goal as meaning. You have to understand the logic behind each and everything that the author says. Okay. And again, feel free to watch his interview as well. So, how is it that you can get to that 90th percentile? First of all, you have to learn you have to learn the strategic pausing technique utilizing master comprehension course. Okay. And um, once you do that, you then need to learn all the concepts in the light of the logic. Don't learn concepts in isolation. Don't just think, oh, passive voice is incorrect. When you learn concepts in isolation, you end up creating those misconceptions. Being is wrong. um, um, Passive voice is incorrect. No, you have to understand the intent behind being. Being is a word in English, it's a very valid word. Why would it be wrong? It's wrong only in certain instances when it's not used correctly. Passive voice is a logical construct. Why would it be wrong? It's wrong only when it's not used to communicate certain type of meaning. You have to you have to look at the grammatical rules in the context of the logic that each of the rules are set up for. Okay, so that's what you'll end up doing with when you learn the concepts in the SC course. You'll master those concepts in the context of the meaning. Okay, why is R dotting incorrect? Why is present continuous incorrect? It's not incorrect. It is incorrect in certain context. In what context is present continuous tense incorrect? In what context is past perfect tense incorrect? Those are the questions. Context is very, very important. That's why you need to learn the concepts in the right manner. Now, when you're learning the concepts, you need to be able to figure out, have you mastered those concepts? Many a times I get the question, how do I know whether I have mastered the concept? Again, you have to ask yourself the right questions, and which is where the course that gives you feedback at each and every point, you that's why that course comes in so handy when you're learning about verb ed modifiers or verbs or modifiers. I mean, you have to understand when you go through all of these modifier concepts, you should be able to understand, can I figure out in which cases verb ing modifiers and noun plus noun modifiers can be used interchangeably? Okay, again, the context is important. Can I figure out in which cases verb ing modifiers and these, oh, this is the same thing over here, right? Can I figure out when the modifier errors happen because of the voice change? Can I figure out when the modifier's error happens because of the placement of the modifiers, right? So again, these are the concepts, but these are the applications. Okay, that's what the e-GMAT course will help you arrive at. That's where the e-GMAT course is going to give you that feedback. Okay, so you learn, you refine, and then you excel, and then you get those feedbacks. Now, if you're learning from a book or if you're just solving questions, you're not going to be able to get that kind of feedback, right? When you're learning these concepts, you engage with more than 500 examples, and utilizing the technology of our platform, we provide you feedback more than 100 times. And that feedback is now sufficient for you to either do certain corrective actions or move on, because now you've mastered that concept. Okay, likewise, let's talk about application. When do you learn the application? After learning a certain set of concepts, and which is where in the e-GMAT course we have what we call as application files, which are inserted at the right time, at the appropriate time, after we teach you a certain set of concepts. What you see over here is, after we teach you a set of subject verb concepts, we basically give you an application, because we don't want you to learn all the way through all these grammatical concepts and then solve questions, which is what most prep courses do, which is what happens when you're learning from a book. When you're learning from a typical, let's say, a book, what's going to happen is you're going to learn, you're going to front load yourself with all these concepts, but you will not really be accustomed to applying those concepts in the sentence correction question format, right? And that doesn't work, because when you're front loading yourself, you just don't know how, where the end is. You don't know how to apply that. With the e-GMAT course, you learn the application right when you're learning the concepts, right? Which is now in verbs, you have a lot more extensive list of concepts. That's why there are two application files inserted over there. Pronouns, limited set of concepts, so a single application file. Modifiers, again, a very vast concept. That's why you have 3 application segments there. Likewise, for parallelism and comparison, 4 application segments. Now, what happens is, as you are moving through the course, even before you finish the course, you get to that 70th percentile ability at this point, because slowly, as you're learning the concepts and the application, your ability starts to improve. I would say your ability will be somewhere over here, but by the time you get to the modifiers, you're going to see a sharp increase in your ability. Okay, because by this time a lot of things start to make sense to you, and then over here, this is really just adding more concepts into your arsenal to be able to solve questions. That is what happens when you learn the right way, when you learn in a course that is built progressively. Okay. So again, the things that you have to focus on when you're learning the application through the application files, are you doing all the steps properly? When you say that you're focusing on the meaning of the sentence, are you able to understand all the aspects of the sentence properly? And again, you need the right kind of feedback, which is what you get from the e-GMAT course. You get such feedback at least 23 times while you're learning this meaning-based process for sentence correction. And again, let's look at how this feedback helps you get to that 90th percentile. Now, this is a story of Sahil. He got to V38, and let me show you his dashboard here. Look at his application, 60%, not very good. But in his practice quiz, he got 100%. How did he do that? Look at the amount of time that he spent. He spent about 47 minutes. And again, this time over here and these scores, these are personalized to you. These are your scores. And we can tell, and you can tell a lot from how you're going about your course, looking at this data. And that's why data is so very important. Okay. Now, when he did his application file, he didn't do a good job, but then he spent quite a bit of time understanding where he's faltering, and which is why, because he spent so much of time on these questions, which is why when he came to the practice quiz, he did really well. He scored 100%. So he took the feedback from the application file, implemented that on the practice quiz, and took the corrective actions, got the feedback from the 60% score, took the corrective action, which means that in this case, he reviewed the solutions of these questions in excruciating detail, maybe twice or thrice, and then he improved, and that improvement was evident in his practice quiz scores. Okay, and when you look at this, these are not just random selection of questions. The application files include questions which are meant to which are meant to teach you the application on SC questions, which are built only in which you'll have errors pertaining to subject verb only. These are very carefully created questions. Likewise, SV practice quiz has a very selectively again very thought the questions in this quiz are inserted based on what you have answered in the application quiz, right? So these are not just random questions put together. Now let's look at verb sequencing. Look at the amount of time he spent in verb sequencing. And this is a difficult concept, so it's good that he spent that amount of time. And you can see that, okay, his results in the application file were decent. I mean, he didn't get to 100%, but he did spend good amount of time. So what we can tell is that he is spending the effort in understanding. But something happened and he didn't really do that well in the practice quiz, right? So he didn't really do that well in the practice quiz, but look at what he did. He identified the questions that he got wrong and he bookmarked these questions for later revision, right? So now he will be able to learn from the mistakes that he did. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that because you get so much of feedback at each and every stage of your learning, at each and every activity level, you are able to take that feedback, implement the corrective actions. And again, there is no one single corrective action. Corrective action depends upon where you're at in your process, or where is it that you're making mistakes. In the previous case, the corrective action was revising. In this case, the corrective action was, again, making sure that you understand why did you make a mistake over here, right? And then he was able to do well in the OG quiz pertaining to this particular file, right? So again, you the key thing is you have to take the feedback seriously. You have to take the corrective action so that you improve along the way. And again, this is verbatim from his debrief. For me, the biggest thing regarding SC was the application of the concepts. My concepts were not bad in the first two attempts, but I lacked the knowledge of application of the same. Concepts can narrow down the options from 5 to 2, but after that, the application of the concepts plays a game-changing role. Exactly same thing that Jim said. Exactly same thing that that Rohit said. So again, keep in mind that if you have to get to that 730 plus score, you need to be able to you need to be able to master the meaning based approach. You need to learn the right way. You need to get the feedback, the 87 feedback points by learning the concepts, 23 plus feedback points by learning the application. You need to get these feedback points so that you achieve that precision. Okay, so I think we are done with this. Yes, this was the last slide here. And I hope that it's clear as to how is it that you should be proceeding with your preparation. So I'm going to give you the PDF for this presentation. And while I give you the PDF, sorry about that, I will want you to tell me what did you learn from this session, your feedback, and tell me how will this session help you get to that 90th percentile. And if you could please put your rating here as well, I would truly appreciate that. And let me also share the links to the free concepts. Break to make, that's interesting. Now, for those of you who do not have a study plan, I would urge all of you to write to us at support@e-gmat.com and request for a study plan so that we can help you create your own personalized study plan. That's very, very important for you to get to your target score. Okay. And if you like today's session, then definitely see me tomorrow for our number properties session. It's gonna be fun. It's going to be done a little differently from the way we did this session there. We're going to start off with simple questions and then we're going to increase the difficulty level as we move along. But we'll definitely enjoy that. So register for this one. All right. Here's a number property session thing. All right. I truly appreciate your inputs here. I'm so glad that you all understand that meaning is so very important. And frankly, I mean, your last sentence, your performance in the last question was telling. I mean, that basically said it all. The most difficult question of the session, and you guys aced it really well. All right, good. Good luck and write to us at support@e-gmat.com if you have any questions, if you need any help with planning your preparation. We are there to help you. We have a full team of GMAT strategy experts um, uh, waiting there to help you ace your GMAT. All right. Thank you very much.